Hey, how y'all doing? This is Dixie Dave from Weed Eater, and you're listening to Doom Tomb. This is the Doom Tomb podcast, the podcast for all things stoner, doom, and sludge. We've got an interview from Skype, actually, with Tony from the band LaGoon. We talk a whole bunch about influences, this recycled guitar project that he has. I got to get more on that. I need to talk to him more about that. And also a little bit about the band Wizzerd. It's everything from what guitar tastes are. Well, you'll hear about it in the interview. A little bit about mushrooms. And, of course, about the release, Maa Kali Trip. Let's get into it. This is Tony from the band LaGoon. All right, so I have this gentleman on the phone. Now, do you pronounce it LaGoon?
LaGoon, yep.
LaGoon. And do you prefer Anthony or Tony or?
You can call me whatever you want. Anthony, Tony. A lot of people call me Tony.
Tony. All right, we'll go with Tony. So this is Tony from the band LaGoon. Sir, what do you play in the band?
I play guitar and I sing vocals as well.
And, you know, I've listened to the music a whole bunch. Thank you for some of the stuff that you sent. I really appreciate it.
Hell yeah, man. Thanks for listening.
And you know what? Quite honestly, I think that you all are some of the first people that have ever followed the Doom Tomb podcast. So again, I appreciate that.
Yeah, for sure, man. Yeah, we've been following you for a while now. I think even before LaGoon started, I started following you.
Hey, so you know what? Like for a second,
maybe we started around the same time. How long has Doom Tomb been going?
And I kicked it off like end of 2017.
Oh yeah, so yeah, we started right around that same time. I think December 2017.
Then it's a perfect match, basically. Is what you're saying.
Hell yeah!
All right, so with every release that I hear, I get this like garage doom, and if I can ask you, what are some of your influences for that?
Man, I have a ton of influences, but I would say like my largest influence for sort of that lo-fi kind of sound would be like the Stooges, some of like the early St. Vitus stuff.
Right.
Just kind of some of that stuff that's like a little raw sounding. Early punk.
Yeah, with that punk influence, that punk aesthetic.
Yeah, exactly.
Awesome. So now you're out of Portland, yes?
Yep.
So when you're, just for people that are touring, if you're going around and you need to book some shows on the West Coast, Pacific Northwest, where do you suggest they go? And, you know, LaGoon as well, but maybe some of the other bands in the area, like who would you suggest to be on the bill?
Some other bands? Oh, man. So some bands that we play with a lot in the local area, Ash Eater. They're a 3-piece that's really killer. It's sort of a like heavy driven rock and roll, sort of on like the Motorhead kind of front.
Nice.
Then there's like Robots of the Ancient Worlds, more on the doom side. If you go over to like Olympia, our friends in Grim Earth are a great band to play with and set shows up with. And then up a little bit further north in Seattle, there's Sorcia and the Cronkmen. And yeah, man, I don't know. There's so many great bands, but those are some good ones to start with. For
and
sure.
I see a ton that come out of that area. Now, as far as venues, like what kind of venues would you say would be some of the top ones to book a tour through?
I would definitely, in Portland, I would suggest either the Kenton Club or Highwater Mark, especially if you're a heavy band. They cater to that type of music, and that's kind of where the local scene bounces back and forth between. On any given Friday or Saturday night, if I don't have anything to do, it's one of those two spots.
Nice.
And then there's a spot in Eugene that is one of my favorites called Old Nick's Pub. And for anybody that tours, you know that loading in is a pain in the ass, especially partway through the tour, running into stairs and shit like that. And the cool thing about Old Nick's is they have a garage door that opens up directly to the stage.
Really?
So, yeah, it's right behind the stage, so you can back your van up literally right to the stage and just load all your shit right on.
Oh, that's perfect.
Yeah, it's great.
So thank you for that, by the way. And, speaking of, I know you going out to different spots. You got different tours that are coming up. I saw this van and the pictures that you have online. So
we love our van.
Do you have like a mini house? Like what's going on? Is this like some kind of DIY small home project?
So it kind of started like that. I bought the thing, and it was like an old work van. So just like metal inside, and I insulated the whole thing. And then for a while we had a bed in there, and we recently took the bed out and replaced it with a couch. Mm-hmm. So that we could cruise around with some of our friends to shows and things like that. Nice. But it's ever evolving. We have a tune called Worship the Van, and we stick to that policy pretty strictly.
I've seen that hashtag around lately.
Yeah.
I see some kind of sticker revolution with that phrase. I don't know.
Yep.
There's something there.
Yeah, definitely.
So, what are there any new plans for the van, or are doing anything extra?
No, we just had to replace a fuel pump on the van, so that's about all the love it's probably going to get for the rest of 2020.
Yeah, after that, you just got to go for it,
Yeah, exactly. It's in tip-top shape now, so hopefully we don't run into any problems on the road, and
yeah,
that's all we can ask for.
That's it. Just make sure it's tuned up and just get out there and, go.
Yeah, we've had some problems before, and it's always a pain in the ass to break down on the road.
Yes, absolutely. Well, hey, AAA,
Yeah, no, definitely.
It does wonders.
Yep.
Okay, so if we can, I was going to talk about the artwork, and I want to get to that when we talk about your new release. I wanted to talk for a minute about some of the previous artwork that you chose and who you went with. You went with Rimba. Yeah,
Rimba's a good pal of ours. He found our band really early on Instagram and reached out to us, and we've had a really good connection with him ever since.
I love his work.
It's great
because I've had work from the gentleman that for your newest release. But some of these others, actually the next one, Mont Doom, I haven't had any work by this person, and I love that too. That's some great art.
He's got a very unique style. It's pretty cool. I like his a lot.
And you also worked with Amplified Design?
Yeah, out of Colorado. He's another good pal of ours. And he does killer work. Some of his posters especially.
I've gotten some stuff from him too. I love it. There's something very, very interesting about Lane. Like I don't know how, my process was I just asked, I said, I don't know. You listen to the radio, listen to the podcast and make something up basically. And he said, okay, yeah, that's fine. And came up with this thing that was so, I should say, I'll have to send you a link. It's such a unique picture. And it's like it fit in everything I wanted in that short discussion. I don't know how this guy does it.
Yeah, absolutely. That's what he did for our last album too. We didn't give him any direction really at all. We just sent him the tracks. And same thing, he sent us back the full album artwork, and it was like spot on.
Yeah. And no change, just like, yes, that's exactly what I need.
Yeah, artists like that are great to work with. Excuse me, David Paul Seymour's another one. He's a lot like that.
Unbelievable, massive professional. I know for way back I probably stalked him a little bit on the podcast saying, "Hey, you got to come on," but now I can think I can reach out and say, "Hey, just let's do this. Let's get this."
Yeah,
done.
That's the thing about the thing I really respect about him is I think there's a lot of artists that will work with some bigger bands like he has, and they will refuse to work with the smaller guys, or raise their price so ridiculously high that you can't get anything. And
Right.
he's been great about, he'll make something for anybody, you know, and
Yeah.
it's a price that's reasonable and still affordable. So
Absolutely.
yeah, he's a great guy.
Now, if you don't mind, I had a few questions from some things I saw on social media. First,
Yeah.
there was this picture from 2019. It was Halloween. There was somebody in a skirt kind of thing. You want to explain what happened there?
Well, we've every year, the last couple of years, we've played Burnside Skate Park, which is a huge skate park under Burnside Bridge here in Portland.
Right.
And it's kind of a DIY event. Hundreds of people turn out. The cops end up turning out to shut it down at some point every year. And we've been lucky enough to play music there the last couple of years. And basically, my wife just wasn't having the fact that I was going to not dress up 2 years in a row.
All right.
The first year I barely dressed up. And so the second year she was like, we're getting you something crazy. Mm-hmm. Hence the skirt and the belly shirt. Yeah.
You were rocking that. That's like Britney Spears era kind of belly shirt you got going on.
Yeah. Yeah. It was an interesting time. It was pretty fucking cold out that day too. So
oh, okay.
Yeah, it was a struggle.
But the struggle is real, my friend. The struggle
it is
real.
Absolutely.
Also, I saw something else. You did something. You were fixing Jalen's guitar from the band Wizzerd.
Well, I built him a guitar. I've got this little side project called Recycler Electric Guitars.
Okay.
And I build them out of recycled plastic.
No
so
kidding.
I take the plastic and I press it down. And so I built him this sort of like custom shaped guitar. And I think he actually
just throwing in a careful edit. Hey, nothing else to see here. It's just a careful edit. There isn't really much else going on here. Let's get right back to the interview.
So it was a lot of fun building it for him. He sent me a bunch of pot leaves in the mail, so I lacquered those on the top for him, and
I saw that.
Yeah, love those guys.
That is just a wonderful piece, really. And I wanted to talk about some of your gear that you're using. Maybe something different from the studio than if you're on tour. But I just one quick other question, because Wizzerd, I've seen him around a few times. What does Mr. Yeats' guitar taste like? Because somebody like what was it?
Oh man, tastes like pure love.
Pure love. You hear that? You hear that?
Yeah.
Wow. All right, Mr. Yeats. Well, I think I'll just let that lay there. So what's your gear? What do you got?
So right now I play. I've got a orange CR120, which is just the combo version of the head. But man, I think some combos I've heard they're a little bit thin, and it's not really, especially for the kind of heavy music we play, it's not necessarily ideal. But
exactly.
Orange makes a hell of a combo amp, and it's got a ton of power, and it's built like a brick shit house, so I can toss it around. I don't have to worry about breaking tubes or replacing them. And then I play that through a Marshall cab 412s. And then I also have a 115 PV bass amp. It's like the TKO 400. And so that's just, I pair that one up, and it just gives me a little extra low end. And with the two of us, I've got that one cranked up all the way, and then the Orange is about like 3/4 of the way up, and the two together just like roar. Especially if you're playing someplace where they have you mic'd up and stuff too, it's more than enough.
It's a lot of power.
Yeah,
and it you know what? From what I heard from the live recording, it's just two pieces. It just sounds so big, so huge.
Yeah, it's got an interesting I don't know, it's almost like I push the bass amp so hard that every once in a while it's like it almost like fades in and out, but
Right.
it kind of adds this extra effect to it that I really like. So I'm happy with it.
Hey, it works. It works for you.
Yeah.
I saw something else. How did you get Dr. Phil to pose for you?
So that was actually just like a friend's amazing. Actually, our drummer Brady did it. He's just like amazing at Photoshop and things like that, and it just looked so fucking real, and people thought it was real, and we just went along with it.
Hey, he knows good. He knows good music. He does.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So let me go. I wonder what that's from. I wanted to. So I wanted to talk about the new record, but also about the live album. What a great idea! I saw like Great Electric Quest putting out a live album. Now you've had one now. So what was that, and how'd you get started work with Interstellar Smoke?
So the live album came about. It's sort of been something that Brady and I have wanted to do for a while. We more or less record our albums in sort of a live setting anyways.
Right.
But it's still like you've got time with the record, right? So there's editing that you can do and little like extra guitar licks that you can add in if you want to, and just these sort of extra vocal tricks. And I don't know, at the end of the day, we're just a live band. Like that's really what we like to do, and where we think we sound best and have the most fun doing it. And so we wanted to just kind of be able to show that to people. Because I love our albums and I like showing that music to people, but it's still, I wanted to have something that I could show to people to really give them what LaGoon sounds like.
Absolutely. So. And it comes across. Before I wanted to talk about the new release as well. Yeah, I guess we get started with that, but the vocal, like where do you get your inspiration for your vocal?
Like the tone that I sing in?
Yeah.
Man, I've got a lot of inspirations that there's sort of like weird. I kind of like people that sing poorly.
Okay.
And that's some comments that we get a lot online. One of my favorite comments that we've ever gotten is, "This band sounds great, except the singer sounds like Gigi Allin." And to me, that was like, yeah, I don't think I sound like Gigi Allin, but and Gigi Allin, he's a scumbag, but that's sort of the styling that I'm going for, is kind of like a more harsh kind of tone. Obviously, I love like Ozzy and the way that he sings, and some of the classic dudes like that, but
right.
I can't really pull it off. So I'm more of like a Iggy Pop, Neil Young influenced kind of guy. Just fucking go for it.
You wrote your own path, and that's one of the things it's not like something I've heard before, and whether it's a growly vote, you can get some tones and stuff, but you're having something unique and special, and there's a piece of that, because I've seen stuff that you've posted on social media, like about skate culture and etc. And
yeah.
I feel that your music is such a great blend for that. It's
yeah, and that's where I grew up at the skate park, and I still spend a lot of time skateboarding, and it's it's kind of the culture, like you don't give too much of a fuck,
Yeah.
Because the second that you do, it's just like, I don't know, it's unauthentic, and it's just, I love doom music and like stoner rock music, but I don't spend a lot of time listening to those genres in particular.
Right.
Just for that reason, because I feel like that's what got me into it. But I feel like if I spend too much time in that sort of area, that it just kind of starts to influence you too much.
right, so sometimes we have this thing with Skype. Sometimes it comes in and comes out, but I think we got everything figured out. You still there?
I am here.
Fantastic. And I think it's perfect time because we'll just go into this right now. Maa Kali Trip, the latest release. So I find it fascinating, like, even from when you were saying in the beginning of the amount of material that you've put out. And it seems like, like you guys are just so fluid in just creating new music. Is Brady, like, do you feel like he's the perfect fit?
Yeah. I think it's one of those situations where even though we're a two-piece and I'm playing the guitar and doing the vocals, he's become he's such a big part to the way I play these songs and the way that all the songs are written that if he were to ever leave the band, it would definitely be the end of LaGoon for sure.
Right.
And it's and he comes with ideas as well. He also plays guitar and plays keyboard as well. So he comes to the table with instrumental riffs and things like that as well that sometimes we incorporate in. And then, sometimes I'll just have one riff and then we'll be able to build a song off of it from there. So he's an instrumental part in writing all the songs.
Yeah. Are you usually, I'm sure you've had other projects. Did you usually have other projects that were just as prolific, or do you feel like you're hitting a stride?
This is definitely the most attention anyone's ever paid to music that I've released.
Okay.
I've always been in bands or been releasing solo projects and stuff like that, and it's just kind of always been something that I wanted to do for myself. And so I've never really tried too hard to push any of my music until starting to make LaGoon. And we released the first single and stuff online and got a lot of hits on Bandcamp randomly. And so it kind of, it's driven me to be a lot more, hands-on with this project.
Absolutely. And I think it's time to get into it here. First off, the artwork. This is definitely David Paul Seymour. What was the inspiration for it?
He did an absolutely killer job. So actually, we had started working on the album, and we knew that we were going to call it Maa Kali Trip, based off of some mushrooms that we had eaten.
Right.
And actually, he had that artwork partially up. It was a little bit different, but it was up on his Instagram, and a bunch of people tagged us in it because they saw the van wrapped in the vines on top of the thing, and so people just thought of us because of our van and stuff. So we got tagged in it 5 or 6 times on Instagram, and it seemed to just fit really perfectly with what we wanted to do for the album.
Nice.
So I reached out to him and asked if he could make a couple changes to it and add the title and our logo. And he did an amazing job.
It is. It's so unbelievable when you work with this guy. He's just so professional, consistent, and you never know you're never gonna get a bad product.
No, and that's the thing I really really appreciate. Is all the artists we've worked with in LaGoon have been great, but in the past I've worked with artists where you don't hear from them for a week or two or something. They don't respond to your messages, and he's the sort of person that you could make a change in the way you wanted it midway through drawing, and other than maybe charge you a little extra, he would not be angry with you or do anything like that. Very professional guy.
Absolutely. Hey, do you mind? Should we go through some of the tracks? You can tell me a little
let's
about.
Do it.
All right, let's kick it off with the first one, Maa Kali Trip.
Yeah, so Maa Kali is a I think after looking into it more, I think it's like some sort of Hindu god or something as well.
Yeah, it's a Hindu goddess of like death, time, doomsday. Actually,
Oh
also,
man, it's perfect.
yeah, sex and violence. Yeah, sex, violence. That's pretty hard stuff there.
Yeah. And that's exactly what the mushrooms was some pretty hard stuff. They really they were mushroom truffles, and they just like blew us all off our feet. And like I do every single day, I started playing around on my guitar a little bit and made that riff, and just right there decided I'm going to make this song about this trip. And then from there, everything else just sort of like spewed out of me the next day as far as the vocals and everything like that go. It's a pretty straightforward song, but it's just kind of a welcoming to the trip that is the rest of the album.
Going into track 2, what can you tell me about Addiction?
So Addiction is something that, you know, I've struggled with, not on a large scale necessarily, but I think everybody struggles with different addictions in their lives. And like tends to happen on a mushroom trip, you start to sort of question yourself. So that was a big part of the trip for me, was me sort of in my head questioning myself about basically what I was doing there, tripping my balls off, being the age I am. but then, you know, you move on past that, but that was a definite moment. And so that song is just, about the struggles of addiction, starting at like an early age and just wanting to be able to like break away from it, but not being able to.
Interesting. Yeah. Okay, so Maa Kali Trip, Addiction, you know, closely tied. What can you tell me going into Smoke and Flesh?
So Smoke and Flesh is like a little bit more of a party song. It's probably one of our most like driven, upbeat songs that we've ever made. And it's also vocally one of the more intense ones. It's got a lot more screaming on it than we've done in the past.
Right.
And it's based on an old early 70s film called Smoke and Flesh. That's basically just about these like delinquent kids in the city smoking a lot of weed and having a lot of sex, and that's basically the premise of the entire movie. And that's the premise of the song as well.
I think I am going to have to check that out on IMDb. Let's see. Is there any like catchy 70s dialogue that would be interesting
in the movie? Oh yeah. Oh yeah, it's killer. As soon as you start it, you'll be hooked. It starts with like this really awesome like scene following this guy on a motorbike through the city, and like just a super psychedelic song playing, and like right there you'll be like, fuck yeah.
This is what I'm here for. I got it. All right. Yeah. I'll check it out as soon as I'll definitely put it in the show notes, but I'll check it out as soon as we are done here. What do we got? Whoa, we're up to Warning.
Yeah, so Warning is it's got a vocal sample that I found online. I'm not even entirely sure who it is. I slowed it down a little bit, or tuned it down a little bit, so it's got kind of like that satanic sort of sound.
Right.
And it's just an instrumental from us, and then over top of it, it's this guy talking about mushrooms and basically how they can convince you that you're dying, but they can't actually kill you. And so it's just sort of like a warning. The whole album is really about the entire Maa Kali trip that we took. So that's sort of like that middle ground when you're kind of like just about at your peak, and you have to kind of keep reminding yourself it's the drugs.
Is that what they call? Is that when you get to ego death?
Sorry, what was that? You cut out for a second.
What you were talking about, that space that you got to, was that referred to as ego death?
I think so. Yeah, it's like, yeah, letting go of your ego and just being like, everything's going to be fine.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's perfect. And what can you tell me about the peak?
So the peak is the moment that happens sort of right after that warning period that you have. And the peak is sort of, for me, it's two things. It's the peak of the trip, but it's also, I think, kind of relatable to life in a lot of ways. When sometimes, I don't know, you might just be having like a killer month or something. You feel like you're like at this peak, and then you might, or like a lot of people, they'll go on vacation or something, and then they get like depressed afterwards, because it's over.
Right.
And that's kind of like the peak. I feel like that's where a lot of people get hooked on drugs, is like they're feeling so good they don't want to come down from that. And so that's the whole song is just kind of about like, it's like a little reminder of like, you should come back down to earth.
And She's a Weapon?
Yeah, so that one, that one's the only one that doesn't necessarily tie into the trip entirely. But that song's about my wife, and she just is a weapon. It's
plain and simple.
In multiple ways. You can use your imagination on it.
Sure. Oh yeah, I got it. Okay, well, I think we'll leave that there. What can you tell me about Criminal?
Criminal. So this is actually a song that we wrote a while back. I got my car stolen out of my old parking garage, and then they found the guy 3 blocks down from my house, passed out with a heroin needle in his arm. So he didn't even make it 3 blocks before he nodded off and couldn't drive my car anymore.
Wow.
Yeah, and so it's just kind of a song about dumb criminals. Like, they're just like so focused on what they're trying to accomplish, which is like, getting their drugs or whatever they need, that they just do stupid shit.
Yes,
and you see
do.
that a lot in Portland, especially. So, yeah.
I can imagine. I don't know. All right. I have yet another person from in that area. Portlandia, how close to the truth?
Oh man. I think it's pretty, there's some parts that are fucking spot on.
Right.
But I don't think that it shows enough of like the grungy side of Portland. I think it's a little bit too like hip and clean and like cutesy funny in a lot of ways,
I got you.
When like in all reality, Portland's like the leading city for like homeless people per capita. And so it's like, it's, I don't know. It's kind of, I would say it's hit and miss.
Understood. I got you. And that's fine. It's still a fun show. I don't know.
Yeah. Hey, I love Fred Armisen. I've seen him a couple times around the city.
And really? And
yeah.
Filming or?
I assume they were filming because I don't think he lives in this area. Okay. But yeah.
And I guess we might as well finish this out with the Come Down.
Yeah, so the Come Down's another instrumental track with some samples over top of it. And I don't know. It's almost kind of like, it's musically, it's got a lot of like classical guitar influence. I went to school for classical guitar, so
right.
I try to like once an album do something that's just a little bit, more technical. Us being a 2-piece, a lot of the time it's, it's not like easy necessarily, but a lot of the time it's just about us being tight and being kind of a unit as one, so it doesn't get super technical because we're trying to keep the volume up, through the song.
Absolutely.
But on the album, we're able to kind of dip away from that a little bit, so it's a little bit more technical. It's got like 3 guitar tracks on it, and it's kind of like the good night to the listener.
Yeah, exactly. Yes, and by the way, just all the music that you've created in the short period of time that you've been a band. Thank you for what you've been doing for like just advancing the genre.
Oh, thanks, man. I appreciate that.
I really do, and I know you guys from social media, etc. I know you're such super hard workers, and I really hope that this latest release will actually show people even more of why they need to see LaGoon live.
Thank you, man. Yeah, we appreciate that. That's what we're hoping for too, definitely.
Now, if I could have you for just a few more minutes.
Yeah.
I got this thing. Everybody knows by now. I want to ask you a question to ask the next band, and I think I'm going to go through a few of these here that I might have forgotten to ask. So are you ready for these questions?
Yeah, hit me.
All right. This is going to come from Tanner Crace from the band Source. He wants to know, what is your grossest tour story?
Ooh, man. I would say our grossest tour story is probably the hotel that we stayed in San Jose. And it was just like filthy. The sheets looked dirty. Like the top cover was like covered in dust. There's cockroaches.
Oh.
There's like a stain on the ground. It looks like someone been murdered there.
Oh, that like a chalk outline?
Yeah, there was like dudes like smoking meth outside. So we ended up just like crashing in the van in a parking lot like a little bit away from our hotel and not even staying there because we were just like, fuck this.
Oh, that does not sound good at all. Have you gone by there again? Is that place in business? Is it shut down?
We haven't. No, that was the last time we made it south. So we'll have to swing back by though at the very least and see if it's been knocked down or not yet.
Yeah,
I doubt it.
Take a picture for prosperity's sake, at least.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay. Let me see if I can figure this question out. What is the interaction in your mind when you play music?
The interaction in my mind. I would say I'm pretty focused on what I'm doing. I think there's a lot of people that can be up there and they can be, I have a tendency to be really crazy on stage, but I'm still very focused on, that's just like how I play the guitar. I just bang around a lot, but I'm definitely very focused on like the notes I'm playing, the lyrics I'm singing. Like I have a tendency to like, as I'm approaching the next verse, like remind myself in my head, like the first word, that sort of thing. So I think,
sure.
I'm definitely super focused on like the act that I'm doing up there, as opposed to like, I feel like some people can focus more on like the, I don't know, stage work and stuff like that. But I'm just like, let's make it through these fucking songs.
So true. Oh my God. Yeah. And I hope I got that right. I was writing that last night. I don't know. Might've been high. And I might've wrote it wrong, but I like, it sounds like a good question so far. And,
it does. Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know what exactly it means, but I'll have to listen again and figure it out. Okay. So this is going to be easy. Are you a vinyl collector? I
am. Yeah.
Okay. What was the first vinyl that you had owned?
Man, I can't remember the first vinyl I owned because my dad always gave me so many, but the first record I ever bought an Earthless album.
From the Ages?
It is From the Ages, yeah. I just pulled it out. I couldn't remember what the name of it was. Yeah.
It's a good choice.
Which, yeah, killer. And honestly, it was, I'm not going to lie, I hadn't even really heard of Earthless at the time, but the album artwork is so fucking killer, and it's got like you can open it up and the artwork continues, and that right there was like enough for me to just swoop it up. And then that was kind of my entrance into this heavier style of music as well. So
were you? Yeah,
I owe it to vinyl.
Question. Were you listening to this genre, a couple of years ago? Or is there something kind of newer for you?
I grew up with my dad listening to like Black Sabbath and stuff like that.
Sure.
So I've always like definitely liked heavier like rock and roll, but it was for a lot of my life with my dad being my main influence. It was like, classic rock and roll and stuff like that. And I was kind of like one of those younger kids that was like almost kind of like a little hipster, like music now sucks. Like it was all good. Like back when my dad was young.
Right.
And, so yeah. And then I feel like in like the last like 5 years, there's just been such a people that, are older than me, like you, for instance, might be like, it's been like this for a while. Where the fuck have you been? But I feel like in the last 5 years, especially, I don't know if it's becoming more mainstream or if there's just more killer bands starting to play this music. But I feel like it's really starting to like go back to the roots of like rock and roll and moving, at least in our little circle, moving away from all this synth shit and that sort of stuff.
I completely agree. There's so much material out right now, and so many great bands, and some that have been around for quite a bit. I have a different background, whether I listen to hardcore, death metal, black metal, whatever. And I even, I was even a hair band fan. I listened to those too. But there was something always about this sound. And I figured out it stuck with me, and I didn't even realize it, whether it was Sabbath or whether it was Caius or, I don't know, the Sword, ASG.
Yeah, and absolutely, yeah.
And now it feels, and obviously because I'm more enveloped into it, there's just so much great material.
Yeah, it's really amazing. Is.
And
yeah, I love it. Really do.
Yeah, thank you. Me too. And if we're going to talk about vinyl, what is the essential album?
The essential vinyl album?
Yeah, and I don't know if you want to go with, something that you really like, or maybe something that's your most coveted piece.
I'm going to have to go with the latest Wizzerd album.
Outstanding.
It's my favorite one, and it's mainly my favorite one because they gave it to me for free. But also it's a great record. Those guys are some of my best friends, so that's definitely one that I don't know. I've gotten to this point where I've kind of stopped buying records of larger bands because we play with so many killer bands that are on small labels and stuff, that I just try to support them.
Absolutely.
So that's I've got this section of my vinyl collection that's just like bands we've played with, and those are kind of the ones that I hold the nearest to my heart.
Well, now, are you going to be? I know they're going around. Are you going to be playing with them anytime?
No. So they're coming to town the day before our album release.
Oh, okay.
So they're playing a festival that Tia Keever here in Portland puts on, called Medieval Madness.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a killer 2-day festival that happens every year around this time in March. But with our album release and stuff, it didn't line up this year. Gotcha. For us to be a part of that, and we usually play with those boys, but then we'll see them when they're in town, and then we're going to Rocky Mountain Riff Fest that they put on. So, and it's, I don't know, we're supposed to play Electric Highway Fest as well in Canada, but we'll see how the coronavirus affects that.
Yeah, that's kind of getting weird, isn't it?
It is, yeah. They're being a little bit weird about people leaving and coming into the country, so. And
it's crazy. I know somebody that just went over yesterday, went over to London, and I don't know. I don't know. When are they shutting it down? Is it now, or are they picking a date?
I think it's like 10 days from now or something, I want to say.
Gotcha.
Because I know some of the bands that we've got some buddies that just got over there, and they're having to cancel their tour and try to find flights home before they can't make it back into the country. So it's a mess.
It really is. It really is. And before I ask you for your question, I had this one other, I was thinking, I'm looking at it. I wrote it down. It's actually the first one I wrote. And I'm just kind of looking at it. And I'm just going to put it like this. I'm going to say it. And if you say, I really don't prefer to answer that, I'll fully understand this.
Okay.
Tony, what is your worst shart story?
My worst shart story? I actually don't have any like good ones of me, but one time my buddy Jake Havala in high school sharted. And it was after school, and he got a ride from one of my other friends. He got in the back of the pickup truck because we were like, you can't get into a car because you've got shit in your pants. And instead of driving him home, we just drove him around town for a while.
Oh, jeez.
So that's probably the best one.
And that is fine. I didn't know how that would go. I might have to bring that question up again.
Yeah, It's a good one.
Thank you, sir. Thank you very much. So, one of those side question. Are you binging anything on Netflix right now?
Yeah, fuck, I can't remember what it's called though. It's like some new crime thing about these parents that like severely tortured their son, and like, I don't know, it's pretty fucking dark.
Okay, would it be under documentary or?
I think, yeah, it should be under like crime docs or something like that. Yeah, I can't remember what the fuck it's called.
Okay,
but it is it's a brutal look into, I don't know how failed kids are in the child service program in our country.
Okay, so if you can remember that after this discussion, just message me if you can, all right?
Yeah, no, totally.
I appreciate that, sir. And what is the question that you would like to ask the next band?
Let's see here. All right. What do you think is the ideal length of time to go on the road for a band that has full-time working members?
Ooh, I like where you went with that, my friend. Very good. Very good. I might want to keep that for a little while, and
feel
keep
free
asking it around. That's a great question, brother. Thank you.
Yeah, that's something that we kind of go back and forth with a lot. It's like, is it better to do a bunch of short tours throughout the year and just do like 3 or 4 days, get out on the road here and there, or to save up all the time and, take a month off or something like that? So
I got you. Well, we'll throw it out there. Maybe even, I don't know, maybe even put it up on social.
Yeah, I'll be interested to see what people have to say. Okay,
and I guess that's where we'll kind of throw it down. Let's hear a track from Maa Kali Trip. This is the title track from the band LaGoon.
The hollow slits
doomtombpodcast at gmail.com. That is how to reach us. Doomtombpodcast on social media. Give us a like. We'd really appreciate it. Follow us. You know, usually I post up a bunch of videos from different events. That's not happening for a bit, so we'll put up other stuff. No worries about that. Thanks, everybody, for listening. We got a few more episodes coming up really, really soon. So take care of yourselves. Do some. Oh, you know what? Don't go to the shows. Check out the live casts that everybody's been doing. Those have been some fantastic shows online. It really is a unique experience, and it's what we have right now. So enjoy it, and we'll talk to you sometime soon. Buy some of that band merch, by the way. I know these bands need it, and don't forget to stay heavy.